All right, folks, we continue the Dragon Ball retrospective series with Herms as we revisit the Dragon Ball Z anime. We've already in the past talked about Dragon Ball. We talked about all the arcs there in the movies. We talked about the Vegeta saga, the Saiyan arc, the Saiyan arc, whatever you want to call it. It's got multiple names. We talked about the Frieza / Namek arc. We talked about the artificial human / android arc, the Cell arc, all that stuff, including the filler. Now we're going to move on to the Buu arc, and I think that's pretty good timing because right now, on Toonami Adult Swim, they are finally airing Dragon Ball Z Kai the Buu saga, which is going to give a lot of our really, really young fans an opportunity to watch the Buu saga for the first time, especially in Kai version with that really, really good dub. But we're not talking about that here. We're talking about just the overall anime, comparing it to the manga, and kind of dig into Herm's brain a little bit about it. So, without any further ado, please welcome back Herms. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, it's good to have you back, bro. So, during your journey of watching Dragon Ball, you did everything. We got to the Buu arc, and I want to ask you, because there are two trains of thought here before we begin here, and that is about the overall Buu arc, start to finish. A lot of fans really don't like the Buu arc. They feel it's a step down from the remainder of the series. They think that it's too silly. It has a lot of strength problems and power scaling issues, and some people think the ending sucks. But lately, Herms, man, I've been talking to a lot of longtime Dragon Ball fans, like Mr. Fusion, for example, and he's over here telling me, no, actually, when you rewatch the Buu arc, there's a lot of great moments, and he likes it more than the Cell arc. So I wanted to ask you, now that you have revisited the Buu arc for the first time, and who knows how long the anime version, how do you feel about it?
Well, I've always been a fan of it. I like the way it combines just the more silly stuff of the early part of the series with the more over-the-top battles from the later part. So it is kind of like a mixing of those two styles. And I think this is actually the portion of the anime that I've seen the most often all the way through, because it was the first one that I got all on DVD on the old Funimation DVDs where they had like 3 episodes per disc. And they had, the Tournament Saga, the Boppy Saga, the Buu Saga, which was like essentially the Fat Buu Saga, and then the Fusion Saga, and then Kid Buu.
Yeah, but you're talking about that Christmas when you got like all those DVDs. Yeah. I remember
it's just
that.
like 800 DVDs just about, and yeah. So after I got it for Christmas, that's when I marathoned them through the break and the Christmas break, and I've seen it. I watched it all at least once after that. I think maybe 2 times. So like even prior to this, I've seen the Buu Saga, all of it in the anime, like probably 3 times, just marathoning it. And then, but I do, I've read the manga a lot, and I do think, I don't know, it's hard to tell. Like, there's a lot of things I think are better in the anime, but I think I still like the manga version better overall.
Yeah, and has your opinion on it changed at all watching it this time? Like now that you're a lot older, I know you have like a nostalgic feeling for it, but quality-wise, like objectively speaking, do you like it more than Cell overall?
Probably not. I mean, well, story, like I think plot-wise, the plot of the Cell arc hangs together a lot better than the plot of the Buu arc overall. Even with all the crazy time travel shenanigans. I mean, I get what people say about the latter half of the Buu arc just being kind of all over the place, but that is kind of what I like about it, is how crazy it is. So it's hard to, I don't know. I think what I like the fact that we have both of these sagas back to back. Like, I like that they are different in those ways. That you have a more serious story arc with more consistent logic, and then you have this more wacky thing that just goes you can't tell what's going to happen next. And I'm one of about 5 people on Earth who actually does like the 10-year later epilogue thing as just an ending for the series.
Yeah, no, it's funny because, now I'm going to hit you with another one, though. Which version, the original or the rewritten one from the Kanzenban?
Well, I think, both, but I mean, I do like the Kanzenban giving the thing, more of the little extra ending where Goku gives Oob a Kintoon Nimbus to it, and there's this thing where he flies off, and you see Oob with this this flashback to Kid Goku, and I think that does cement the whole passing the torch theme a little better. But I mean, even without that, I think it's a pretty good ending where it's like you get a sense that Oob and Goku are kind of kindred spirits.
Right. Yeah, it's a bookend too. Now, you talk about wacky. Okay, the beginning of the Buu arc. Let's talk about the Gray Saiyaman arc, Saiyaman arc, whatever you want. You rated these episodes in your original recap anywhere between 3.5 and 2.5. Like they're pretty, average to above average episodes. Now, we start off with a 7-year time skip, which is the largest time skip in Dragon Ball up until this point. But before this, it was 5 years between Piccolo, or the 23rd Budokai, and the arrival of Goku's brother. Now, how do you feel about the Saiyaman extra filler in the anime? Because there's like a whole 3 or 4 episodes worth of extra stuff with the dinosaur, the Gohan going on a date with Angela. How did you think it was good filler? Because I'll be honest with you, bro, I used to hate it when I was younger, and then as I grew older, I rewatched it, and I really loved. I love the idea of there being like a Saiyaman solo series of just him being a superhero and Videl doing things and solving crimes and mysteries. Did you think it was a welcome break from the dead serious Earth is in close to extinction of the Cell Saga?
I mean, I think I have sort of the opposite arc you did, where I think watching them, I've liked them in the past, but I think watching them this time around, I didn't like them quite as much. I think I like the idea, like you said, I like the idea of this being a separate series, but I think I like that more than the actual material we got added in the anime. Like, I mean, well, I guess we should say, so in the manga version, Videl, it takes her about 8 minutes to crack Saiyaman's identity. It's literally the first case they go on with the bank robbers who aren't even in the anime version until Super.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, they're in the intro. They're in the We Got a Power.
Yeah. Oddly enough. And anyway, so those two guys, they catch them, and then Videl immediately figures out that this is Gohan, and then blackmails him into the tournament. And then the anime gives us all those extra episodes, and I guess they're fun, but I don't know. I guess none of them are super great. So it's like, I feel like they could have actually done, if they were going to add in all these extra episodes, there's probably more they could have done with the concept.
Now, I'm going to presume that when you were younger, you were obviously less knowledgeable than you are now because you were just starting out like we all were. Now, how do you feel about all the Easter eggs in here? We got characters from other Toriyama manga. We've got tributes to Black and Red from Red Ribbon Army. I love the fact that there are cameos from, like I said, from all over Toriyama spectrum.
Yeah, because they had what's his face? Is it the Red Shark Gang?
The Red Shark Gang, yeah. Dub and Peter won.
Yeah, led by the same villain from that Toriyama one-shot. And, I mean, that's just a thing where it's like, if you spot it, it's kind of a nice Easter egg. And then Red and Black directing the movie, it's like, it's kind of cute, but I don't know. It does actually kind of, make me wonder, are these their twin brothers, or is this, I don't know. I guess even though it's just supposed to be a joke, I can't help but try and rationalize it in some way.
Right, yeah, and I do think it's funny how Rock, the leader of the Red Shark Gang, looks like Nappa. I mean, people thought it was like, a tribute to Nappa, and I can see that, but it really isn't.
I never saw that before until now, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the hat that threw me off.
Yeah, it's the yeah, if you take the hat off, we assume he's bald. It's I guess that would be the connection. Now, I got a question for you, bro, because you'd be the best person to ask about this. Hail Zeon, my friend, made a really good observation, which I may make into a separate video, about why Goten was introduced. One of the things about shonen anime, specifically Dragon Ball, that he talked about, which I think is a really, really good point, and Zeon is very knowledgeable about anime and manga. I mean, this guy's got a wealth of knowledge in his head, is that one of the reasons why Goten was introduced is because the idea of having a protagonist that is a kid is kind of like a shonen trope. And this is why Goku becomes a kid in GT. This is why Super has a lot of filler or, in between episodes that focus on Goten and Trunks. And his whole thing is, because Goku was dead and Gohan grew up, they kind of had to introduce a new child protagonist. Is there anything to that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think, pretty obviously. He's like supposed to be the new audience identification figure. Now that, the audience, he'd be closer to the age of most of the readers because, before Gohan was in that role, and then before that Goku. But yeah, with Gohan grown up, it's like now Gohan is like the reader's older brother, and they would associate more with Goten and Trunks more.
Yeah, and I think that was strategically done by Toriyama and probably his editors and whatnot to do that. It's just so obvious, man. People always ask, why is it that in GT they do this? And I know we have Pan, who's younger, and Trunks was like kind of he's grown up, but we've seen him grow up. Goku being a kid again just kind of goes back to that, that classic, I guess, I don't know what you'd even call it, that, I don't know. But, okay, moving forward, I want to talk about the Broly, the second Broly movies. That came out right around this time. I think that is the most boring of the Dragon Ball movies. I mean, some people think it's the third Broly movie. I think the second one's actually more boring. What do you think, man? I mean, down here in your... Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I think pretty much my least favorite of the movies, just about.
Yeah, you rated them both 2.5.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick, I'd say I like this one less than 11. But it is kind of hard. This thing, it looks great. That's the best thing you could say about it, is that there's a lot of great scenery. There's a lot of good animation. The ending with the, the threefold attack. Yeah, it's kind of just, it's going back to the conclusion to the Cell games and then just upping it. It's like, well, now we've got the whole family again. But yeah, that's a cool moment. But apart from that, it's just kind of nothing. The opening bit with just Goten and Videl and Trunks hanging out and searching for the Dragon Balls, that's pretty. That's okay for what it is. And then once Broly himself actually shows up is kind of when it goes downhill, in my opinion.
And then Gohan just shows up out of nowhere, he's not even in the movie, he just flies in.
The thing is, it's in. Say what you will about Broly, but in movie 8, he is a character. He has personality, and in this movie, and more so even in with Bio Broly, he's just he's nothing. He's just a guy who attacks people because he does.
To me, man, the only reason why I put Bio Broly ahead of Second Coming or whatever, the second Broly movie, is because I like that Bio Broly gave Krillin and 18 shine. I like this. I like the fact the story centered around 5 characters that weren't Goku and Gohan, Vegeta, or Piccolo. I think that movie, neither one of them is a great movie, but at least they gave different characters shine, and I really, really like that.
Yeah, and they kind of started doing that with this movie too at the beginning, but then eventually it just turns into Gohan. Of which I guess that is actually kind of unique on its own, because it's there's the only movie where Gohan is flat out the hero is 9, so
right,
and then this one where he kind of is, but more so than anybody else.
Yeah, Goten and Trunks end up fighting Broly more than he does, even, I would say.
and then in the end it's a team effort that brings him down.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that is kind of, it is a little different in its own way, but it's yeah, I think boring just sums it. The whole middle section of the movie where it seems is, they're just avoiding Broly, or I don't know. I couldn't tell you what happens between when he attacks Videl and when he gets killed. That whole sequence of events, it's just a blur in my mind.
He goes into a volcano, and yeah.
Oh, they do have the thing with Krillin dressed as Piccolo, which is kind of completely random, but kind of funny.
Yeah, I like that too. It's just, that's just so boring. So, okay, the tournament arc. I really love the beginning of this with Gohan trying to avoid the camera and the punch machine. I really enjoy this stuff. We see Kaioshin for the first time. Of course, Goku doesn't know what to make of it. I guess we're supposed to believe upon first viewing they might be the next villains. They don't really make it clear until later. But I noticed something. You the Goten Trunks fight, you gave those episodes 3.5, 3.75. What do you think? Because you wrote here not the greatest animation. Is that why you prevented it from giving it a 4? Is it because of that? Because I love that fight, but I was curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's a very good fight, I guess. But yeah, the animation lets it down.
Yeah.
And it's like in the manga, I really like that fight even more.
So what is it about the manga that's better? Just better art?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, now the Sapopovich and Vidal fight. All right, this one, of course, somewhat controversial, especially nowadays in the way the world is now. Did you feel that it was too brutal watching it over again, or is it one of those things where, it's a cartoon, it came out a long time ago, it didn't really faze me?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, it's supposed to be brutal. I think like it was the right amount of brutality, but it was actually funny. Like watching it this time around, like the main thing was that it did seem stretched out. Like it's like they just have her keep beating. They have him keep beating her more and more, just as a way of dragging it out. And I mean, I don't want to get like I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is a thing where in the manga it goes by. It's paced a bit better. It doesn't wear thin too much. Too much. Like I'm not offended by the brutality, but I do think like they show her getting knocked around one too many times just from a pacing point of view.
Yes. Now, you gave 4 out of 5 to episode 219. You wrote a type of tension and mystery we don't often get in the series. Plus, Gohan looks really cool. This is, of course, the episode where Gohan... I love the scene. The transformation itself, when he's inside of the ring, and he powers up, and he screams, and then Sapopovich and Yamu come in there. Yamu, whatever. I was getting mixed up. He sticks them in the gut with the power sucker, for lack of a better term, and they escape. Was it the music and the screaming that gave you such a high score?
Well, part of that, but like I think like it looked, like I said, it looks very cool. Like I think that's one of my favorite Gohan outfits is just when he's the Saiyaman outfit where he's lost the cape and the turban, and it's just the kind of black skin, the black tights with the green whatever
the
you
jacket
call that.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, that thing. Like I really like that look, and yeah, just the fact that if you haven't been spoiled and you're watching that at this point, you still really don't know quite what the heck is going on, which again isn't something we see too often. Like we get that with Cell when he first appears, and for like 2 seconds with Raditz kind of, and I guess the next time we get that is with Super with Black.
I mean, I feel like, okay, with Raditz and with Cell, and even with Frieza, if you're watching the anime and they have that filler with the spaceship kids talking about him, I think that they kind of gave away who they were quickly. Here, you've got a good, 7-episode stretch, roughly 6 or 7 episodes, where you don't know anything about who the villain is, you don't know nothing, and I like that they really stretch it out a lot more here.
Yeah, and I think... I guess the negative aspect of that is that I assume that's why we ended up with 2 more Broly movies, because like the pattern with the movie villains is that they're always a copy of whoever is a villain at that point in the main series. So when they were trying to make movies of this part of the series where there is no like big obvious villain, they like couldn't come up with anybody, so they just recycled Broly.
Takao Koyama has a hard-on for Broly, bro. That's what it is.
Yeah. That's
what it really is. Right, go ahead. What were you going to say?
His official explanation that he's given in interviews is that he just couldn't think of a stronger villain than Broly. But, I think really in practical terms, it's just he didn't have any new stronger villains in the main series to use as a model.
Yeah, and you're right, it's just 2 more movies of this. Now, looking back, I don't know about you, but I'm going to ask you, that's why we're here. I, to this day, am still a little bit salty as a fanboy that Gohan was not the one to take out Sapopovich. I just, the idea of him seeing his own girlfriend get demolished and Gohan not being the guy to, maybe you don't have to make him like Cell Games Gohan, and all the Gohan fans would have loved that, but him not being the guy to literally rip Sapopovich apart, it still bugs me.
Yeah, I think that would have been too obvious. I like the death he gets where he's just, he does all this stuff in service of Babidi, and then immediately he's killed once he's of no further use. Like I think that's it's a Bobbity pretty well.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's a trope also in a lot of anime. This ain't the only
Oh,
one. Sailor Moon, where the general gets killed by the main villain type thing.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it is kind of cliche on its own, but I think it works well here. And I also just like the way he's made to explode.
Yeah,
Like,
really gross.
yeah,
Now,
with techno colors in the anime.
yeah, they also did something similar when Boo killed Babidi. It was like that
Yeah.
really gruesome. So we have the introduction of Dabura and the introduction, or Dabura. Dabura is the right way to say it. And then we've got
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra. That's the pun. But we've also got Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, of course, Bobbidi. Was Toriyama on a Disney kick here? Because we not only do we see, okay, we know Toriyama loves Disney, 101 Dalmatians. He loves that movie. We see the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo Boo pun, but Dabura looks so much like Jafar, and Jafar would have been out in around this time.
Does he really?
I think he does look like Jafar. He looks just like Jafar.
He just looks like the devil.
Well, that's what Jafar looks like.
Not as much.
Maybe not, but I mean, it's. I don't think he's gonna blatantly copy Aladdin, but I just find it too coincidental that Aladdin was, it wasn't the big movie, but it had been, about a couple years old, and there you see a Jafar-looking villain. I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you think. What were you gonna say?
I think it's kind of a stretch.
Come on, Herms, bro. The evil goatee.
That's that's the devil again. That's like just not Mr. Satan. That's just the biblical Satan. Well, not that the Bible describes Satan as having a goatee, but actually, that's a good. Okay, I need to research where the devil with a goatee first originated from.
So do I, actually, because you're right. It's not in the book. It's not in the Bible. So I'm curious about where that came from. Yeah, it's like the whole. Yeah, it's something that has become I guess the vision of the devil in fiction for so many years, and now it's there. So what did you think about Babidi and Dabura as villains? Going in, it's pretty obvious that they introduced the plotline of Majin Buu, and if you've seen any anime or any TV show, you knew that Majin Buu was going to get released. It just wasn't a secret. So anime versus manga, how do you feel about, this whole, when they're in the ship and they're fighting Pui Pui and Yakan, and by the way, we already talked about in the past about Pui Pui being,
Pui Pui.
Pui Pui, yeah, he is the basically the Japanese equivalent of Hocus Pocus. Chin Chin Pui Pui, I think you said, right?
Yeah. Which is essentially just a generic magical word.
And that's why they call him Pocus in the Viz manga.
Yeah.
So, do you like the Vegeta Pui Pui Pui? Do you like the Goku Yakun in comparison to the manga?
Yeah, I think this stretch of the anime when they're in his ship, it's a lot of good animation days. Especially the first episode where they arrive, where they're perched outside watching them come out of the ship and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good looking episode. I think Vegeta. I think the Yakan fight is probably that's kind of let down because it doesn't look that great. But I really like the Pui Pui fight. I like how it looks, and also I just like I do kind of like those sorts of one-sided fights every now and then. It obviously would be boring if every fight was one-sided, but I do like to see Vegeta easily beating the crap out of this guy.
That actually brings up a good point. Oh, go ahead. I'll ask you.
It is a little. It is in the manga. It is a little more not graphic, more visceral. When he gets killed at the end, you can kind of see his face dislocated from the rest of his body in that big explosion, which is a detail that kind of gets left out in the anime.
Yeah, it was somewhat toned down. I'm trying to figure out how to really word this question. Okay, do you think that the idea of, I know you talk about one-sided fights, do you think that the idea in this stretch of episodes that Goku, Gohan, and Vegeta being so strong, being so much more powerful than Babidi, I mean, that could make sense because Babidi's whole thing was never about power, but the idea that Gohan fights Dabura and they're having a little fight, and Vegeta constantly says that Gohan stopped training and that he's stronger and all that. he's reminding the audience that, he surpassed Gohan pretty much from training because Gohan slacked. Do you think that takes away from the drama of this whole arc, just knowing that Goku and Vegeta could have easily wiped out Dabura? Because it kind of reminds me of Resurrection F, how we have Goku and Vegeta struggling against Golden Frieza. Meanwhile, we have, Beerus and Whis chilling, and Beerus and Whis could easily take out Golden Frieza.
Well, I think the point is that, you kind of meant it's supposed to make it even more impactful when Boo actually when he shows up and actually is way stronger than, because I think that stuff with the henchman and Dabra himself, like Dabra who gets hyped up and then actually isn't quite that impressive. Like, it's to lure the audience into a false sense of security. Like, we're kind of supposed to, when Vegeta's like, I bet Boo's not going to be much either, because all these other guys, they've been crap. Like, I think we're supposed to kind of go like, maybe he's right, because that's how things have gone so far. So that when Boo comes and just starts kicking the crap at everyone, it's more of a surprise at that point. Because, I think at this point, with this series, we've had the iterations of, here's a stronger villain, now here's a stronger villain, etc. That's been done so many times that if they just did it straightforwardly with, if they had all of the henchmen be challenges, then it wouldn't, by the time Boo came around, it's well, here's yet another challenge after the last 3 challenges. It would feel like kind of challenge fatigue or peril fatigue or whatever.
Yeah, you're saying it's basically to prop up the good guys just to get beaten, which actually does make sense. I mean, it's like that in Dragon Ball Z throughout the series, really.
I mean, yeah, if there's one I guess is going back to the Android and Cell arc, if there's one problem I have with that is that it is it's just constantly every single threat is billed as the biggest threat ever, and then until it gets immediately replaced by the next biggest threat ever, which, I mean, it's I know a lot, some people that's why they like that arc, but I think if every threat's the biggest, then it kind of becomes meaningless. So I like the fact that the Boo arc, it goes in, it's an incredibly long time before we get people who are genuinely stronger than anyone we saw at the Cell games. It's not until really Goku and Vegeta start their fight that's you're stronger than Gohan was back then. It's until that's almost in, I can't I don't remember the episodes, but in manga terms, it's 2 whole volumes go by before we really reach that point. So I kind of like that slower build up for the Boo arc.
Yeah. I've said in the past that I feel that the first half of the Boo arc is fantastic. It does somewhat fall apart in the second half. I don't hate it or anything, because you know how it is on the internet, man. If you just criticize something even remotely, people, oh my God, you hate it. I don't hate it. It's just that I think that the build-up, I think the entire build-up from the tournament into Majin Vegeta, all that stuff, that fight, Dabura, I think everything there is fantastically built up to the hatching of Boo and then Boo fighting Majin Vegeta. Also, you rated episode 226 very highly. I love that episode too, and that is the episode where Gohan fights Dabura, and of course the end of the tournament with Mr. Satan and 18. I thought that was some great development for 18, man. The fact that she's, it's funny. When she was a villain, they would just show a lot of scenes of her and her brother going around robbing places. She still wants money now, but because she's not a villain anymore, she'd rather just con her way into getting money versus stealing it outright.
Yeah, she's theoretically a good guy. She's not entirely reformed. And you actually do get the feeling that this feels like what Toriyama wants to be drawing, whereas the Gohan versus Dabra fight, it's that's a sense that that's what the audience probably wants, but in the manga we barely get any of that, and it's all just focused on the 18 and Mr. Satan stuff. And I think it's Toriyama's kind of just letting his preferences dictate. It's weird. We have the same story, but the focus of the parts of the story we see the most of are the parts Toriyama's most interested in.
With Dab. Oh, go ahead.
And but that's the thing. The anime version, they add in. We see way more of Gohan fighting Dabra compared to the manga, where we just get the tail end basically. There's narration in the manga. There's a narration box where it's at this point, by the way, Gohan and Dabra have been fighting for a while now, and that's the intro to their fight. And then we just see it wrap up. Whereas the anime, we get kind of the whole thing from beginning to end. And
Yeah.
So that's another, like, I'm kind of torn on that, where it's like which version is better? Because it's, it seems almost obvious to say, like, well, it's better to get to see more of the fight because it's theoretically an important fight. But like, I guess at the end of and there's some good fighting. There's in the anime version,
and it's Gohan fighting, which we hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, but I think at the end it's like there's a lot of stuff throughout the Buu arc in the anime where it's like a lot of stuff that gets built on more. Where in the manga that's kind of just touched on briefly. The first instance, the Great Saiyaman stuff, and then with this Gohan fight, and then Goku and Majin Vegeta, which again is like we see at least twice as much of their fight in the anime. And then kind of even, let's see, I guess in the second half, like Gotenks, his first fight with Fat Buu. Like there's stuff that gets expanded on a lot more in the anime. And it's like on a case-by-case basis, I like that they expanded on it. But when you take it all together, it means that the story arc as a whole, it makes it incredibly long. So it's like when you do go through it all at once, it's like, I think it does make, like, a lot of people say the story arc is just way too long. And it's like there's a lot of that stuff. It's kind of the same old story. It's like, well, the manga, it's quicker paced and that's why it's better. But
it's still long in the manga, but it's way longer in the anime.
Well, I mean, in the manga, it's 7 volumes. The last 2 volumes are kind of longer than typical volumes, but still it's like 7. That's roughly the same amount of material as the Android Cell arc. It's if you go by chapters, it's technically the longest because it's like 99.
Yeah.
So, but it's like the chapters get shorter and shorter as the arc goes on because essentially Toriyama's just getting kind of lazier, but he's
I like to use the term burnt out. I think he was getting burnt out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, and they're letting him do it, like essentially, I guess because they know he's been doing it almost 10 years. He has more sway at Jump. I mean, I don't think, if he was starting out, there's no way they'd let him get away with just sending in 13 pages instead of 15. But that's essentially what he was doing throughout this about a third of the way through the arc. And he even, he has the thing in the manga where the Goten and Trunks are doing the fusion dance. And it's the same exact panels every time. And Toriyama has a note where he's like, you don't have to pay me for these pages. That's okay.
Now this was Fuyuto Takeda was the editor at this time, correct?
Yeah, he's his last of 3 editors, who is supposed to be the model for Fat Buu, because like even Toriyama, he made a note. They have in Jump the weekly author comments. Yeah. And Toriyama's author comment for the week where he first met Takeda, it's like, I met my new editor and he's kind of fat.
What a dick.
Of course. I mean, he doesn't. He doesn't say it like that, but that's the gist of it. And he mentions his way. It's like he's fat, he's fat by Japanese standards, which means by American standards, it's like, it doesn't even register.
Right.
And anyway, so he's supposed to be the model for Fat Buu, just as Torishima was supposed to be the model for Piccolo, and then Kondo Yu was supposed to be the model for Frieza.
Now, was Takeda not the guy who, I forget where I read this, that he is the one who suggested that Mr. Satan do more, and he would be part of the main cast?
Yeah, that's what I've heard, is that I can't remember the exact interview, but I believe Toriyama has said that. I mean, it makes sense, because he was the author. So Takeda, I guess we should say. So Torishima was the first editor all of Dr. Slump, and then Dragon Ball up to the end of the 23rd tournament.
The guy who discovered Toriyama.
Yeah, and also who vetted his early subscriptions to Jump. All the stuff that got rejected before Toriyama even got published at all in Jump. They said is he sent in hundreds of pages, well, maybe not hundreds, but a whole lot of pages, and we just had to reject them all until finally he came up with something that was up to our standards. And this is the start of the running joke of Torishima just rejecting all Toriyama's ideas. Anyway, so he was, for Dragon Ball, he was there up until what in anime terms we'd call the pre-Z era. And then so with Raditz, we got the second editor, Kondo Yu, who was there for a Saiyan arc, Frieza arc, and then androids up until Cell reaching his perfect form, which is kind of an odd transition point. They didn't wait till the story arc ended.
And you know what's weird about that, Herms? You know what's weird about that is I'm pretty sure that's when Yamamuro took over as designer for the characters in the anime. So you've got 2 big transitions behind the scenes for both the anime and for the manga.
Yeah, and if there's been any I assume that there must be some story behind this, but if it's been said officially publicly anywhere, I've not found it. But anyway, so then Takeda was the last editor for the Cell games and then all of the Boo arc. And Toriyama has said like that he was lenient compared to his first two editors, which might explain the tone of the Boo arc as a whole.
Yeah. He basically let Toriyama do whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
whereas Torishima would always, I guess, would it be, what's the right word? Like, I guess not chastise, but he would always challenge Toriyama. Is that the right word?
Yeah, like I said, he wasn't afraid to reject his ideas and push him to do other stuff. And like, he was the one who, when this series started out and it wasn't doing too well at popularity, it's like, okay, how about we do this? Like, how about a tournament and then that, or maybe
he's pretty smart, bro.
Pick things up. Yeah, like he seemed, and he was even after the famous thing where even after he was editor, like when he was working on V-Jump or something with the androids, he called Toriyama and criticized the designs for 19 and 20.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, and it's like, and so he still kept doing this even though he was in no official capacity to reject these ideas anymore. He's still trying to get his voice heard, and
even up until Resurrection F, he told Toriyama it was a good idea. And that's the thing, guys. It ain't just Toriyama. I mean, it's just like how George Lucas is credited for coming up with Star Wars, but it wasn't just him. Lucas, Kasdan, everybody contributed. Toriyama's the main writer, but he took ideas, man, and that's one thing that I think people have to always remember.
Yeah. I mean, it is like a joint effort.
Especially with Super.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a whole other ball of wax. But
a whole different thing. And
so, with Takeda's more... saying that he let Toriyama do whatever he wanted is probably an exaggeration, but he is described as more lenient.
Yeah. Well, I exaggerate everything, but... All right, that's it for this video. We're going to pick it up next time as we continue our discussion about the Majin Vegeta arc and compare it to the manga, as well as a discussion about Dabura and whether or not he was wasted, or Dabura, however you want to pronounce it, whether or not he was wasted in the series. It gets really good next time, guys. Thanks so much for watching this little podcast thing I do with Herms, and more to come. Thanks for supporting Geekdom 101 as well as Herms. My buddy Jake will talk to you guys next time.